Testing. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Citizen Advisory Committee. It is 6:39. That I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item is going to be our Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone can please stand and face the flag. Hand over your heart. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have roll call.
Chairperson Gonzalez,
Here.
Committee Member Zavala,
Present.
Committee Member Castañeda,
Present.
Committee Member Delgado, Committee Member Castañeda, Committee Member Martinez,
Here.
Committee Member Mendoza, Committee Member Janer, Committee Member Alonso,
Here.
Committee Member Castillo.
Present.
I, Kimberly Hernandez, Housing Assistant, certify that a true and correct copy of the foregoing meeting agenda was properly posted on February 13th, 2025, 72 hours prior to the scheduled meeting as required by law. Meeting of compensation disclosure pursuant to Government Code Section 54952.3. Disclosure of compensation for meeting attendance by the Citizen Advisory Committee is $25 per meeting. Item number 1, substantial amendments for fiscal year 2019 to 2020, 20 to 21, 22 to 23, 23 to 24, and 24 to 25. Annual action plans for the CDBG funds.
Good evening, Chair and committee members. We have an item, a substantial amendment. We are amending the action plans for 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, and 23, 24. So what we are trying to do is, according to HUD regulations, sorry, I'm going to go to this. Oh. There we go. So according to her regulations, the city is required to carry out the Community Development Block Grant Program in a timely manner. So as part of a detailed plan to meet the HUD timeliness requirement, staff proposed reprogramming $1.7 million of unused CDBG funds from various annual action plans to fund a couple of projects. A construction-ready street improvement project located in eligible CDBG census tract. So we are allocating $752,540. There are 4 streets that are going to be improved. I'm going to go through, or actually Public Works is going to be going through those streets, and they are going to do a separate presentation so you have an idea of where the improvements are going to be done. And then the next change that we're doing is we're consolidating all the commercial facade and business sign programs funds into one commercial facade program that will also include the business sign program. And the total amount, once we consolidated all the funding for all the years, is $1.4 million. So as you can see, we have for 2019 to 2020, there was a commercial facade program. We had $50,135 that was unused. So, and then there was $38,555 from 2020, 2021, and $143,850 from 22, 23. And then there is $650,000 from the business sign program. And for 2023, 2024, there was $500,000 under the commercial facade. And from 24, 25, we had $323,705. So all those funds are being consolidated on the 24-25 commercial facade, and so the total amount for that specific program will be 1.4 million. And then some of those funds too from commercial facade or business sign program are being transferred to the street improvement project for 24-25. The proposed 24-25 annual action plan, as you can see, we received $1.2 million. 20% of that allocation was $249,001. And that goes for administration, which includes 21,343 for fair housing services and 227,000 for program administration. And then we have graffiti abatement. We allocated 90,922, college internship program 21,343, family violence prevention and education 24,000. Southgate Police Explorers, 20,898. Mental health services that will be provided by Compatior, 16,238. Nuestra Casa, La Cara, 13,339. And then the commercial facade, which will be 1.4 million, and the street improvement projects that will be receiving 752,540. So the total funds program, the allocation plus the amendments that we're doing is 2.6 million. If you have any questions, but before we get to the questions, I'm going to have Luis from Public Works do the presentation for the street improvements.
Yeah, good evening, members of the committee. My name is Luis Osuna. I'm the Deputy City Engineer for Public Works. So this is going to be a really brief presentation regarding the streets that we're planning to improve and what are the extents of those improvements. Okay. So I'm actually going to be focusing mostly on Industrial Avenue. This avenue is pretty important because we recently completed the what is called the Holydale remodeling project for that park, and the street or the state of the pavement on that particular stretch is in really bad condition. So we are proposing to conduct several improvements. One of them is going to be, and on the next slide, actually, I just wanted to give you a little bit of reference, right? But basically, we're going to be doing curb and sidewalk improvements, drainage enhancements, ADA ramps, and pavement rehabilitation. On this particular street, we're going to be doing what is called grind and overlay, about an inch and a half, right? And it's going to be brought back as a rubberized asphalt material. And then down below, you're going to be able to see some of the streets that are within CDBG designated low-income census tracts. So those three streets are going to be sharing the CDBG money that we're proposing. One is going to be Industrial Avenue, again, grind and cap, 1.5 inches from Main Avenue to Century Boulevard. The second street is going to be Pinehurst Avenue from Southern to Tweedy, and then Hildreth Avenue from Southern to Tweedy. Those two streets are going to receive a different type of treatment. It's going to be a Cape Seal, a AAA Cape Seal. I just wanted to mention that just in case you were curious about. And then all of the other streets that are listed in there are part of what is called the Residential Resurfacing Project Phase 4, but they're not going to be receiving any CDBG funding. Next slide. As you can see, there's a lot of alligator cracks and some localized failures. The first picture is actually the corner of or the intersection of Main Street and Industrial Avenue. So we're going to be redoing all of that paperwork, all of that pavement work, so we can actually stripe. There's going to be another really a regional project. It's called the Southeast Gateway Line. There's going to be a proposed station at the corner of Century Boulevard and Industrial Avenue. So in preparation for that project and in order to facilitate access to that future station, we're planning to not only rehab the pavement here, but also providing new modes of active transportation, such as bike lanes, sharrows, ADA ramps, and so forth. Okay. And then this is just some of the rationale and benefits for Industrial Avenue being improved. One of them is, of course, improving road safety and drivability, particularly for the newly remodeled Holiday Park. The other one is enhanced accessibility for all residents. Also is reducing maintenance costs, right? And there is a potential for increased property values as well. And the last one is, again, improve access to the future Southeast Gateway Line station at the corner of Century Boulevard and Industrial Avenue. Next slide. This is an aerial picture. As you can see, this is the brand new park, with all the beneficial uses that nowadays we have. The brand new basketball court, the jogging area, all the green areas at the back. There's a brand new community center in the middle of the property. We also improved the frontage of the park with new parking spaces, a new concrete flatwork, and so forth. So that is going to be enhanced by repaving the street along. It's not only going to be along the frontage of the park itself, but all the way from Main all the way to Central Road, and then up about the south, you're able to see the proposed location for the Southeast Gateway Line station. Just for reference. Next slide. Oh. Yeah, sure. Like I mentioned before, the CDBG funds the Carol was describing is about $750,000. Other city funds that are going to be used for the overall project are about $5.5 million for a total of 6.2. And then, as you can see down there, it says the CDBG funds will fully pay for the proposed improvements along Industrial Avenue and partially pay for the proposed improvements along Pinehurst and Hillbrook Avenue. This is just a really rough project timeline that we are hoping to finalize all the design activities by the end of February. We're going to be conducting public outreach within the second week of March. We're hoping to start construction on April 14th. And then because we have a mandate to spend the money by at a certain date, we're really looking forward to complete the CDBG work by June 2025. And then overall, the work is going to be completed almost by the end of the year. There are a lot of moving pieces that I did not describe as part of this project, but you guys are welcome to ask me any details that you or any questions. I don't know if there are any questions for me or Carol.
Actually, for both of you. We can start with you, Luis. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, can we go back to the timeline? Is there a contractor or have you guys gone to bid for this project yet?
No. Like I mentioned, right now, actually before coming over to the meeting, I was reviewing the plan specifications and estimate, right? In order for us to be able to bid it out starting on March 3rd. That's the goal.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, so the plans and specs have not been finalized. So we're looking forward to finalize them and basically start soliciting bids by March the 3rd.
Okay.
And then by the time that we get, so there, as you know, there's a process, right? So we need
Correct.
to go, because these are federal funds, you're supposed to advertise for at least 3 weeks. And then you need to conduct a bid analysis, schedule something for city council. So that's why I'm saying that construction is supposed to start about the second week, by the end of the second week of April.
And then additional funding from the city, where's that coming from?
So that's a good question. Most of that is going to be, I don't have a funding plan with me, but it's going to be a mixture of different funding sources. It can be gas tax, it can be Measure R, Measure M, and I can send you a copy of the funding plan if you consider it important.
Yes, if you can provide me with a copy of the plan,
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, by all means.
Any other questions?
I have a question for either you or Carol. To clarify, at the beginning of your presentation, Carol, you said that the reprogramming of the funds is being recommended because we want to meet HUD regulations. So can you explain to me, like under HUD regulations, what is considered timely is it that the funds are reallocated before May 2nd, or that the funds are spent by a certain date, which I guess would be June in this case?
So part of the regulations under CDBG is that we have to meet a timeliness ratio. So the timeliness ratio means that we can't have more than 1.5 times the funding that we receive. So in order to spend the money, we need to move it in so we can be in compliance with the ratios that we have to meet.
Thank you.
Sure.
Kara, I have a question. So it looks like every year for the facade program, the city has been banking money. So out of this, how much has actually been used compared to how much is being banked every year?
So there is some money that was used. I don't remember exactly the amount, but one of the issues that we had starting the program, and the facade program is being an existing program, but we were kind of like trying to, add more requirements so then it looks more uniform. And then the idea is that we go on the main fair streets in like Tweedy, Long Beach, Firestone, and start providing funding and looking at the businesses that really need to improve their facade and their signs. So we were putting together some kind of requirements on like the signage, for example, how big the signs need to be, and then same thing with the facade. If there are broken windows and things like that, and how are we going to fix the facade, and what can be approved versus what can't. So that's one of the things. So right now we are working on revamping the program. So we're going to have code enforcement work along with us to go and look at the businesses that need to be improved.
I just feel that's a lot of money to bank. That's a lot of money that's gone unused. I mean, I think it's a great program, but the reality is it could be a great program, but if it's not being used, I'd rather move that money somewhere else into our streets. As you know, we're all residents here and we all drive our streets, and we know that Luis and his team can use more money for our streets. So I'd like to continue this item for the CDBG for the facade to our next meeting. I'd like to know how much has been used during these years. Again, the idea would be that, is it really worth investing more in a program that's not being used?
Yeah, we can look at the numbers on prior years on how much we expended on those programs. It probably will be signage and facade that we can consolidate and give you an idea of how much we spend. The committee can always make a recommendation to the council and see if you want to utilize the funding in a different way. But ultimately, council has the approval right, or power of approval on the funding. So like I said, we can bring it on the 26th, since we are going to. Yeah, we can do that. We can bring it on the 26th and get you the amounts.
And I also like to direct staff if they can provide us with the number of businesses who have benefited from these programs or from this particular program.
Okay.
Thank you.
How far do you want us to go? Last 5 years, like last 3 years?
I would say starting in 2022, 23.
22, 23. Okay.
How about since 19 and 20? Because they're projecting all these years, so I would like to see from 19 to
2019.
20 to the present.
Okay. Since we're doing the substantial amendments since 2019, 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
We can look at that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
I have one. You're saying that it's 1.5 inches of the slurry that's going to be repaved? Okay, so it's even better than just the slurry.
Yes.
Because in my experience, I've seen just the slurry gone over the cracks, and then you can still see the cracks. It's very, um,
Yeah, so the slurry seal is more of a maintenance type of treatment, right? So whenever you have certain type of defects already in the pavement, it is not advisable for you to do either slurry seal or a fog seal. You start thinking about a cape seal or a granite overlay, or if this is really really bad, then you will start thinking about reconstructing the actual section, right? But no, in this case, it's going to be granite cap.
yeah, because you don't want to do it again in less time than,
No. And there are many technical aspects that you need to take into account. Unfortunately, in some of our streets, citywide, there is such a thing. It is called a fabric, right, or a geogrid. So when you start messing with that guy, it becomes exponentially more expensive for you to be able to apply the same treatment. That's why we don't actually grind all the way down to 3 or 4 inches, because sometimes you need to fight with that issue, right? But again, all of these recommendations are based on what is called a payment condition index, and other aspects that we analyze, right, prior to prioritizing this type of improvement.
is it possible for the next time you come to present with the other information that we're asking for you to show us? Is it possible for you to, because I'm very visual, if it's possible for you to just like show us pictures as to what the process is going to be? You know,
You want to see an actual picture of how the payment section will look like?
not only the ending, but the processes from the beginning to end,
Okay.
and how long will it take as well,
Okay.
if possible?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Oh, apologies. Any other questions? No?
Thank you.
Okay.
At this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment.
Yeah, Mr. Osuna, he's a good man. He knows his stuff. Okay, hello, Commissioners. My name is Mario Dominguez Jr., resident of Southgate, and I'm here to ask the Commissioners to allocate $160,000. You got some competition here. $160,000 to our Department of Parks and Recreation for the purpose of doing plans and design for our splash pad at Southgate Park. So I just got a couple of quick stories I want to share with you. The city of Linwood is on the move behind St. Francis Medical Center. Right now, they've completed phase one, which is a playground on Cesar Chavez Lane and Birch Avenue. What's going to be next to it is phase two, a splash pad. And I spoke with their deputy director of Parks and Recreation, Jose Trejo, and he told me they're going to have their plans and designs done spring of 2025. And I asked him, so how are you going to pay for this splash pad? We're going to use Measure A funds. Oh, Measure A funds. That's interesting. So I then got a hold of the director of Parks and Recreation for the city of Glendale. His name is Oneg Balakanian, Armenian ancestry, this gentleman. So I'm speaking to Mr. Balakanian, and I'm asking him about his splash pad. So Glendale has 3. They're building their 4th. It's going to be done and completed February of this year. And it's going to be 1,500 square feet. I want ours to be 3,000 square feet. So Mr. Balakanian is telling me that theirs is going to cost $2.5 million. So I asked Mr. Balakanian, so how are you going to pay for this 1,500 square foot splash pad? That's going to cost you your city $2.5 million. Well, we could use our ARPA fund. We can't use our ARPA funds because we've already spent it, used up our ARPA funds. So we're going to use Measure A funds and CDBG funds. Folks, this is proof of concept. If this is the same approach that I want us to take in pursuing our splash pad project, they're going to use Measure A funds and CDBG funds. With that right there is enough to cover it. So he explained to me they're going to, just the splash pad itself, the 1,500 square feet, what he called deliverables, all the gear, the mechanics, the equipment to power the thing, that and the cost of installation is $600,000. And then they're going to do a canopy up above it for shade. They're going to renovate the restrooms, and they're going to put an outdoor shower. So that's why you're getting $2.5 million. So folks, do the math. If theirs is going to be 1,500 square feet and ours is going to be 3,000 square feet, you're looking at $1.2 million. With $2 million, we can fund the hell out of ours and have it fenced off and have an outdoor shower. And again, I'm only asking for plans and designs for 2025. We can focus on building it next year, but if you could please allocate 160,000 to our Department of Parks and Recreation for the purpose of doing plans and designs for a splash pad. And the facade program, why are we subsidizing these people who've contributed nothing for the upkeep and maintenance of these buildings that they've neglected for decades? I mean, you go down Tweedy and it's shabby as hell. It's a sad state of affairs when you look at how that street looks. They need to contribute. It's fine, it's good, but give us, folks, what other cities already have. That's what I'm asking you to do. Be a champion for the residents, please. Thank you.
Good evening, committee. Edgar Pelayo, Madison Avenue. So I want to commend you, Chair, for bringing up the commercial facade. I think it's a great program if it's used. And since it hasn't been used, I mean, I think it would behoove you guys to look for alternative ways of using these funds. I think that streets, as you mentioned, are a big problem here in the city. And I think that it would be good to know how the outreach is going on, how the city knows which streets to address. I know that Hildreth and Pinehurst have had significant problems, and I'm here to also mention that San Vicente and Madison from Tweedy heading south towards Abbott look very similar to the pictures that were shown today. So I would definitely urge you guys to inquire about the cost of repaving each street, and maybe year after year, you can chip away at that and get a few streets done. I think that would be a great improvement to our cities for the reasons that were mentioned in the presentation. Property values would go up, ease of access to residents, safety. And another question I would have is whether or not Metro funds, since the Metro line is going to be adjacent to the park, if Metro funds can possibly be used for that street for Industrial Avenue, because if we're funding it from CDBG funds and taking it away from other projects, is it possible that Metro could get involved and get that done? Another thing I'd like to mention is sort of what the gentleman before me mentioned, that some of these funds can definitely be used for the splash pad. 160,000 is, roughly 10% of what you guys have to sort of allocate towards this. So I think that would be something good to do. I know that Linwood and I believe other cities around us do have those splash pads, and I'm sure that the kids from our community would enjoy that. So I would urge you guys to consider that and try to make that happen. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but the Parks Master Plan was supposed to take place this year, and recently it was basically axed, no longer happening because the city doesn't have money to fund that. So that's another thing that you can also chip away at and provide some funding. Our parks are the jewel of the city. A lot of people come from other cities to enjoy our parks because, Southgate Park specifically is one of the better parks in the area. So definitely consider that. Splash pad would be a great asset to our parks. And 160,000 again is not that much to start the process and possibly fund it completely. I mean, 1.2 million to get it done is something that can be done by your action probably within the next year or two. So please consider that and consider the streets that I mentioned and possibly chipping away at some of these street improvements. Thank you.
Item number 2, it is recommended that the Citizen Advisory Committee receive and file information regarding the CDBG program.
You mean to make a motion? Or-
Yeah, can you carry the motion? I need somebody to carry a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 2.
Mary Castillo, I second that.
Committee Member Zavala?
The motion is to receive and file information regarding the CDBG program. To
Yes.
receive and file.
Can I ask clarification on the prior item? Are we voting for it so then we can move forward with a substantial amendment and take it to the city council?
Yes, the motion to approve or not is for item number 1.
Well, I'd like to keep that item open. I'd like additional information. We've asked staff to provide us with additional information. So I would make a motion not to pass the item, but to continue it.
Okay, and bring it on the 26th? which is
Correct. Bring
next
it to the
week?
next, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a second motion.
Mayor Castillo, I second that.
Okay. Committee Member Zavala?
Yes.
Committee Member Castañeda?
Yes.
Committee Member Martinez?
Yes.
Committee Member Mendoza? Committee Member Janer? Committee Member Alonso?
Yes.
Committee Member Castillo?
Yes.
Chairperson Gonzalez?
Yes.
Okay, so motion will be to move this item to the next meeting. Item number 2, it is recommended that the Citizen Advisory Committee receive and file information regarding the CDBG program. So we will now have a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, this item is for the fiscal year 25-26 for the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funding. So the purpose of this item is to inform the Citizen Advisory Committee of the process to receive the estimated 1.2 million in Community Development Block Grant funds for fiscal year 25-26. And the committee will hear the presentations from public and non-public services applicants on Wednesday, February 26, 2025. I just want to add that to date, we don't have, there is no budget yet from the federal government. So we are not sure whether this will be extended, and we will continue with the process. However, if there are any changes, we will inform the committee. And if the funding that we receive is lower to the estimated amount, we will prorate the all the allocations once you make the decision. The city of Southgate is an entitlement city and receives both Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Programs funds on an annual basis from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the funding is to carry out a wide range of community development activities to benefit low-income residents. On an annual basis, the city receives around $1.2 million in CDBG funding. During the month of October, emails were sent to nonprofit organizations and city departments, and a legal notice of funding availability, or a NOFA, was published on October 31st, 2024, to inform applicants of the availability of CDBG funds for this coming fiscal year 25-26. The applications were made available online and via email. The completed applications were accepted in the city clerk's office up to November 25th, 2024. So for the public service projects, we receive requests from the college internship program. For, the organization is the California Latino Leadership Institute. During CDBG, or during fiscal year 24-25, they receive about $21,343 for this program. And for this fiscal year 25-26, they're requesting $24,000. Compatior Counseling Center, it's requesting $50,000 this fiscal year. Last year, they received $16,238. The police department is requesting $27,000 for the Family Violence Prevention Program. Last fiscal year, they received 24,010. Also, the City of Southgate Public Works is requesting $140,000 for the graffiti abatement program. Last year, they received $90,922. Also, the Southgate Police Department is requesting funding for the Southgate Police Explorers. This year, the request is for $23,500. Last year, they received $20,898. The Southern California Rehabilitation Services for the Southgate Home Modification Program did not receive any funding last fiscal year, but they are requesting $15,000 for fiscal year 25-26. And then La Cara is requesting $15,000 for the residential disorder treatment. This fiscal year 24-25, they received $13,339. For the non-public service projects, we receive a proposal from Boost, the Business Operation and Optimization Support Tools. The organization name is Upwards. Last year, they did not receive any funding. This year, for 25-26, they're requesting $104,000. And then the Southgate Women's Business Center, which the Southgate Chamber of Commerce submitted the proposal, did not receive any funding fiscal year 24-25, but they're requesting $12,000 for this fiscal year. So total for public service requests, we have, for non-public service requests, we have $116,000. And I'm going to go back to the prior slide because I didn't give you the total amount. So the total amount is $294,500 that they are requesting. But I believe that based on the estimated amount of 1.2 million, we only have 180,000.
Carol, is 180,000 for both categories?
No, just for the public service grants.
How much do we have available for the non-public service? Projects.
Depending on the amounts that we receive, or the amount that we receive, if we have 1.2 million, we have to take 20% for administration and for fair housing services, and then 15% for the public service grants, and then the remaining balance, which is about 700 and something thousand, is going to go for other projects, whether it is the two projects that submitted the proposal for economic development, and other projects that we may recommend later on.
Are we able to move some of that additional money? You said there's going to be about $700,000 balance. There's an ask here of about 116. There's an ask of 294 for public service projects. Can we move some of that 700,000 into public service projects?
We can only utilize about 15%.
So
That's-
15% is the cap.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome. Any questions?
Any other questions? Okay, we could open it up to public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. So I got a little story I want to share with you. So I was misled by our Director of Parks and Recreation, Steve Costley. Back in October of last year, I asked him, so what are you, because I had a conversation last year with Gil Hurtado, who was the mayor then, and our city manager, Rob Hughes. I said, look, how do I bypass the Parks Master Plan and get the splash pad included on our city's list of capital improvement projects? Mr. Osuna told me, look, if it's not on any master plan or on their city's list of capital improvement projects, forget it. We're not going to proceed with it. It has to be a prioritized project. So both Rob Houston and Gil Hurtado stated to me, take it through the Parks and Recreation Commission. Or that's their job to oversee and approve park projects. So I'm having a conversation with Steve Costley, and I asked him, are they correct? Can I take it through the Parks and Recreation Commission? And he says, well, you could do that, or you could just take it to the director himself. He's referring to himself. He's the director, right? So he says, look, let me put together a proposal and I'll submit it to the Citizens Advisory Committee. So I go to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting in December and I ask him this very question: how do you intend to move forward with the splash pad? And he says to me, and he says in the meeting, he actually says in the meeting, we're looking into it. And then that's it. He left me high and dry. So that's why I'm here today asking you folks to please allocate 160,000. So if you decide to say no with item 1, saying no, we're not going to do 160,000 for plans and designs for a splash pad. For item 2, I would like to just declare right now that I'm going to come back next week and ask you folks to set aside 160,000 from item 2 for our Department of Parks and Recreation for purpose of doing plans and designs for a splash pad. Let me just give you a few details about what it entails. So they typically cost between $1.5 and $2 million. On the low end, you can go with 500 square feet. The biggest in terms of size is 3,000 square feet. You have to hire, the city has to get the services of a landscape architect. They develop the site plan with architectural drawings. They do a geotechnical report to determine the soil condition. They also design the design will give you a budget estimate, and the ancillary facilities must be within 300 feet of a splash pad. So ancillary facilities are toilets, sinks, urinals. They have to be within 300 feet of your splash pad. That's a California state law. It doesn't matter where you build these things. And then 200 people are allotted for a 3,000 square foot splash pad, and 100 people for a 1,500 square foot splash pad. And again, so imagine to the north of us, and I've already done the research, Bell has a splash pad. To the west of us, Huntington Park has 2 splash pads. South of us, Paramount, they have a splash pad. And then Linwood, as you know, they're now on the move, they're developing theirs. And to the east of us, Whittier has 3 what they call splash fountains and 1 splash pad. Folks, I'm asking you, please, if you were, also the location, Ms. De La Rosa picked it out between the south end of the swim building and where the bandstand is. Thank you.
Good evening again, committee. So just kind of reiterate what I mentioned during the first item. Be great to allocate some of this money to slowly address certain streets, maybe other infrastructure that's needed, including the splash pad and other parks and recreation projects that may be needed. As I mentioned, the Parks and Rec has basically run out of money. There's no money for the master plan, which I think is something very important since it hasn't been redone since like early 2000s. I believe 2018 was revisited and some modifications were made to it, but it hasn't been redone. And I think by what the gentleman before me mentioned, we're sort of falling behind the curve compared to other cities around us. So I think that some of this money would definitely be useful for the Parks and Rec budget. I think that this next meeting for the Parks and Rec Commission, the splash pad item is on the agenda and is going to be discussed. And I think that it's a good opportunity to sort of poll the city and find out from residents whether this is something they want or not. But I mean, again, I think that if you have kids and you've taken them to splash pads, you'll know that they enjoy that. And it's something that would be an asset to our city and our parks. So I would definitely urge you guys to consider that, look into it a bit, talk to some of the Parks and Recs staff. Deputy Director Tina has indicated where an area of the park would be used for that, and I think that that's something that should be considered. Again, other things, streets for sure. You guys all drive through Southgate, you know what that looks like. One of my neighbors said that it reminds him of his rancho back in Mexico because some of these streets are like country roads. So we definitely don't want that kind of comment to continue. And you know, I've grown up in Southgate my whole life basically, and I remember what it was. And unfortunately, we've sort of departed from that. So again, if some of these funds can be used for that, and you guys have basically the power to determine where this money is used, I would urge you guys to look into it and again, prioritize some projects, maybe a little at a time and get it done. The splash pad again can get done within a year or two if you guys decide to move on that. So thank you for your time.
So I'd like to make a motion for item number 2. I'd like to make a motion to receive and file information regarding the CDBG program.
Myra Castañeda, I second that.
Committee Member Zavala?
Yes.
Committee Member Castañeda?
Yes.
Committee Member Martinez?
Yes.
Committee Member Mendoza? Committee Member Janer?
Yes.
Committee Member Alonso?
Yes.
Committee Member Castillo?
Yes.
Chairperson Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 3, present 2025 to 2029 5-year consolidated plan process and receive Citizen Advisory Committee input on community needs and potential goals for consideration as part of the development of the plan.
Okay, so this item is to inform the committee about the consolidated plan process overview for the 5-year consolidated plan for fiscal year 2025 to 2029. So the 5-year consolidated plan, which is also known as the COM plan, is a 5-year plan for funding allocations for fiscal years 2025 to 2029 for the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships Program, which is the HOME program. The consolidated plan serves as the official application to HUD for the CDBG and HOME programs. And also the COM plan provides a strategy for addressing critical housing and community development needs of city residents. The consolidated plan and the elements of the COM plan, we have to consider the needs assessment for the region and consider also local data. We have to do a housing market analysis, put together the 5-year strategic plan, and then also it includes the first year or the first annual action plan of the 5-year consolidated plan, and also includes the citizen participation plan, which is, it talks about how we are going to conduct the meetings, when we do a substantial amendment, what triggers a substantial amendment versus an administrative amendment. And so the annual action plan also provides outline specific strategies, actions, and activities that will help carry out the goals that are outlined in the COM plan. So as you can see on the COM plan, we cover the years 2025, 2029, and then the first action plan or year 1 is for fiscal year 25, 26. The second action plan will be for years 26, 27. The third year will be 27, 28. And the fourth annual action plan will be 28, 29. And the last action plan of the 5-year COM plan will be for the year 2029 to 2030. So the 2020 to 2024 COM plan goals, this is the consolidated plan that we're ending. The goals that we had was for administration, we allocated funding for planning and administration. For housing, we are required to ensure that equal access to housing opportunities are provided. For housing is the preservation to supply affordable housing. Commercial rehabilitation, that's part of the commercial rehabilitation, commercial facade. For the infrastructure and public facilities, infrastructure and public facilities like street improvements and so on. And for public services, provide public services for low-income residents, and also economic development, which provides business assistance. For the CDBG and home funds, the City of Southgate receive an annual allocation of CDBG and home funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development Department. For fiscal year 24-25, we receive an allocation of CDBG funds for 1.2 million, and the home allocation was 564,000. So during the entire consolidated plan, we estimate that we could receive about 6.2 million for CDBG and 2.8 million for home. The annual action plan is for the CDBG funding objectives. They are to benefit low and moderate income persons, prevent or eliminate slums or blight, meet a need having a particular urgency and or referred to as an urgent need. Those are national objectives that we have under the CDBG requirements. The way that we utilize the funding, 99.9% of the time, is to benefit low and moderate income persons. For home funds, we utilize the funds to carry out eligible affordable housing activities that will benefit low-income households. That could be new construction of affordable housing, housing rehabilitation, and could include also tenant-based rental assistance. So for fiscal year 24-25, as you can see in the prior item, I mentioned the different projects that we had. So we have a CDBG administration, which is about 227,000 for Fair Housing Foundation, which we are required to provide funding for fair housing. Is 21,000. Graffiti abatement, we provided 90,000, and that's the goal to support the infrastructure and public facility. Family violence prevention, 24,000, and that's part of public services. The Southgate Police Explorers, the college internship program, mental health program, and La Cara, they're also public service grants. And then we have the commercial facade, that is commercial rehabilitation. Business sign program is community development revitalization. And under home, we set aside 10% of the funding for administration, approximately 56,000. Some funding for housing development, which is about 423,000. And Choto set aside or that we provide for specific agencies that are certified by the city as a Choto. And then we can provide operating funding, pre-development funds under that, that item. And then that's to cover also affordable housing. We also, under this consolidated plan process, were required to review our citizen participation plan. The consolidated plan requires participation and input from citizens, organizations, businesses, and other stakeholders. The primary goal is to provide citizens, especially low and moderate income citizens, to where funded activities will take place, an opportunity to participate in an advisory role in the planning process and the implementation and assessment of the programs and projects. We do have a couple of boards, one in English and one in Spanish, with a QR code in our lobby, and then we're going to be releasing some on some of the platforms like Instagram and Facebook. So then citizens have the access to the QR code, and then they can use their phones and then go and do a survey and utilizing that QR code. That will really help us to kind of like get some guidance from the community to see where they want to see the funds being expended. So the citizen participation process, as I mentioned, we have the surveys. We also just had a meeting with City Council that we also made the same presentation, so we could get some input from the community. We also talked to city departments and commissions, committees. We also reached to nonprofit and other organizations, and then we ultimately, when we have the consolidated plan and the annual plan, we bring this into a public hearing for final approval. So the process started in 2024 on October through February, we've been gathering data. We had community engagement, CDBG grant application review. On 2025, on February 11th, we had the first public hearing for the comp plan process and received the public input. February 12th and February 26th, we're having the CAC meetings. March 20 is the 30-day comment period, which begins so the public has the opportunity to review the plans and make any comments or suggestions. April 22, public hearing number 2, requesting council to approve the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. And the deadline to submit the consolidated plan and the annual action plan is May 15. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission? Thank you.
Page 9 here.
Mhm.
It says provide public services. Which public services are you talking about on that one?
The public services is provide funding to nonprofit organizations that are applying under the public service grants to provide.
Nonprofit organizations, not to individuals in the community.
Correct.
It's a-
It's just for the agencies that will be providing services to families, low-income families. Any other questions?
Carol, I have a question before you go. On your point about community input, you talked about your slide had a different ways of how you were gathering that input and comments. When through those strategies that you've input, do you consider how to access, how to reach more residents more broadly? Because you talked about a QR code here, so I think that's a great avenue. But in terms of people who might only have smartphones versus computers, maybe also targeting different demographics, where here we see a lot of us who are on the older side, but I think getting input from younger residents might also be useful in terms of figuring out what they want to see in the city and whether we are allocating funds for things like splash pads or whatever that community of people might be interested in. What sort of outreach efforts have you put in place to reach a diverse population or demographic of citizens for purposes of this?
Yeah. So we reach to different local organizations, nonprofit organizations, and ask them to also have these surveys available. We had copies of the surveys at different places. And so we asked them to help us, provide those copies to the community. And so then we can receive their input as well. So we're trying to reach in different ways, like providing a copy of the survey or providing a QR code so then they can send us all their information and the input.
Thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. How many surveys were collected?
I don't remember the number. I will have to bring it to you next week. But I don't remember exactly the number.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to open up this item for public comment.
All right, he's not going to say anything, but I'm going to say it. So that gentleman behind me is Edgar Pelayo. Not only is he a resident, but he's one of our Parks and Recreation Commissioners. So I just wanted to highlight that. All right, so for this item 3, okay, you're going to laugh when I say this, but I have to say it. So I want the commissioners to consider pouring the whole 6.2 million, I said this to Ms. Averill, pour the whole 6.2 million into our city's Department of Parks and Recreation. So this is the heart of our city right here, this department. This department, more than any other departments, has a direct impact on the lives of the residents in our town. And think of what we could have if we were to invest the whole sum into our Department of Parks and Recreation. Think of all the big projects that we can undertake. The roof that needs to be replaced on the auditorium, the Boy Scout buildings that need, I don't know, I forget, it's the roofs also, I guess, that needs to be replaced. And also, what I found out about the city of Downey, because I watch Downey City Council meeting in real time when they have them, and I watch ours like a day or two later. But what I found out is that Downey, they actually have cameras for, and I wrote down the list of city parks that have cameras. Their parks are outfitted with cameras that Downey PD are able to watch and monitor. And so we could use the CDBG funds to have our parks outfitted with cameras. And I'm not saying you do them all in one go, but you do, let's say, one park a year, get it properly outfitted with cameras. And then also what Downey does with their parks is they've hired a firm to do security for off-peak hours between 10 p.m. To 6 a.m. And I'm like, well, wait, we can do that here with our parks and adjust the time for like when the kids get out so that the park is properly monitored with security during the time that they're there from after school. But also, I want you to understand, of the big departments that we have, police department gets the biggest piece of the pie from the fiscal year budget, followed by public works. And then Parks and Recreation, they actually just get a small sliver of that pie percentage-wise when it comes to the fiscal year budget. So I asked the commissioners to please consider pouring as much funds as possible into our city's Department of Parks and Recreation. Again, imagine, I'm talking about park amenity projects, park enhancement projects, park refurbishment projects. These are the type of things that we can take on with the CDBG funds. And Ms. Averill already confirmed that both Southgate Park and Holiday Regional Park both qualify to receive CDBG funds because they fall within the HUD census tract. But the others, like Cesar Chavez Park, Holiday Community Park, Circle Park, I asked her if she could look into whether or not they qualify, but I asked the commissioners to please give consideration to this request. Thank you.
Good evening again. So just to add to what Mr. Dominguez has mentioned, the park can definitely need money for auditorium roof. You know, that's needed somewhere to the tune of about $1 million. Boy Scout HUDs also can use that, and obviously the splash pad can definitely benefit from that. I'd like to go back to the whole needs analysis and civic or citizen participation. Across the board at the parks, at the city, and everywhere, we here in Southgate have a lack of participation from a lot of the community. Partially, it's because of technological differences. Some people can't access QR codes. Some people just don't get involved. And so I think that that's an important piece to also allocate some money towards. Recently, there was a topic or an item of discussion at the city council meeting regarding a call-in feature for the city. The call-in feature, I think, living in an age where you can go to the doctor via your iPad, you know, telehealth, there's other things that you can do. I mean, the city would definitely benefit from that. And I think that you guys can allocate some money towards that. I know that our city treasurer gave some input. He gave some amounts. I believe it was something like $150,000 a year to upgrade our systems, our broadband, so that we can have that call-in feature in hopes of getting more participation from the community. That would not only help at city council, but it would help here at your committee, would help with the Parks and Rec Commission, and I would say across the board throughout the city. I think that input is very important for you to be able to make a decision based on how this money is going to be spent. So aside from parks receiving some money, which, you know, I think Steve Costley would be very happy with, and I'm sure that the city would benefit from, I think that, you know, as I mentioned before, chipping away at some of these streets that may need some repair, also addressing the call-in feature and perhaps allocating some money towards that. I think you can definitely have a sort of comprehension approach and comprehensive approach and make sure that little by little we're moving forward with some of the items that are up for discussion. So again, I think that, that those are important things. I think that input is very important from community members, and so I would definitely look into how that outreach is going on. Maybe even using schools where something can be given to each student to take back home and say, hey, this is a survey, we need your information. I mean, I think that we can all agree that the more information you have, the better decisions and better use of that money you can make. So thank you for your time, and hopefully we can have some of these projects funded in the next few months or years. So yeah, with the con plan though, again, because it's a long or a consolidated plan, it's going to probably be hard to reverse course. It's very important to get that input from the community and plan accordingly. Thank you.
Carol, I have one additional question. So are our city departments, I take it they also receive this information and they're made aware that they're able to apply for some of this, the funding for CDBG?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion for item number 3 to receive and file.
Mary Castillo, I second that.
Committee Member Zavala?
Yes.
Committee Member Castañeda?
Yes.
Committee Member Martinez?
Yes.
Committee Member Mendoza?
Yes.
Committee Member Janer?
Yes.
Committee Member Alonso?
Yes.
Committee Member Castillo?
Yes.
Chairperson Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The time is 7:47. With that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.